Welcome back to Lost Touch channel. My name is Anton Vieltsin. I'm a criminal defense attorney in the Southern District of California here in San Diego. I hope you've been enjoying watching my multi-part series dealing with conspiracy law, where I discuss conspiracy in general, we talk about the elements of the crime, Pinkerton liability, and some other concepts. And of course, we're going to be discussing defenses in that series. And so I decided to drop one of the cases that are fresh off the print in the Ninth Circuit. It was published just a few days ago, and it deals with the defense to a conspiracy to distribute narcotics, namely buyer-seller rule. And of course, like I tell all my clients, that trial work and cases in criminal court in general are all about storytelling. And usually when you read the first sentence of every opinion or any brief by the attorney, you can tell whether that person's gonna win, because the first sentence is the most important. And I quote, in this case, the quote is that every parent knows that teenagers make mistakes, period. End of quote. So you can tell that this person will win his appeal. So let's go ahead and take a look at this case. In this video, we're discussing United States versus Mendoza, which is a fresh case from the Ninth Circuit that deals with conspiracy to distribute narcotics, namely methamphetamine. I'm going to first give you a little overview about the case. Mr. Henry Mendoza joined the Canta Ranas Organization, the CRO, at 15 years old. This is a gang that distributes narcotics. 8 years later, he left the gang. Why? Well, because he moved away. He moved away from the territory and broke pretty much all ties with this gang. The only thing that he took with him is a lifelong addiction to methamphetamine. Later on, in 2010-11, the government begins an investigation into this gang and their organized crime and how they're distributing narcotics. And so they listen in on the calls for 7 months. They roughly listened to 21,000 phone calls and text messages. Later on those calls, Mr. Henry Mendoza is on the calls dealing with narcotics. He gets charged with a bunch of crimes, but in this video we're going to discuss only one: conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute methamphetamine under 21 U.S.C. 846. I know I have a bunch of videos dealing with 21 U.S.C. 846, so I encourage you, of course, to watch those other videos. But here's what happens. He goes to trial and loses. The trial district court sentences him to 180 months in custody. He appeals, saying to the appellate court that one, the district judge failed to give the jury the buyer-seller rule as a defense, as a jury instructions. And he also says that if you look at the facts, there's simply insufficient evidence that no reasonable jury could hold him to being guilty of this crime. Here's what the buyer-seller rule says: mere sales to or purchases from other individuals do not establish a conspiracy to distribute or possess with intent to distribute. There must be an agreement. Remember, go back to that maybe first or second video in my conspiracy law multi-part series where I discuss agreements. What is a conspiracy? It is an agreement between two or others to commit an underlying crime. So if there is no agreement, where's the conspiracy? It is just a distribution case. Here's what the evidence that was presented to the jury at trial. The appellate court gives us a summary and compares the two sides of the narrative. The government says that Mr. Henry Mendoza is a member of CRO for life, because once you're a member of this gang, you're given an oath that you're going to be a member for life. He has multiple tattoos with CRO's imagery. In 2013, he was caught and arrested with 16.2 grams of pure methamphetamine. That was in 2 baggies. He also had a police scanner, a loaded gun with him. He had no pipes or syringes, which shows that he's not simply using it himself, otherwise he would have those. And he purchased these narcotics from a CRO member on credit, meaning that he didn't pay him right away. Then in 2016, there was another arrest. 3.5 grams of methamphetamine in 2 baggies were located on Mr. Mendoza. And then the gun in the 2013 incident was later used in a drive-by shooting. That's what the government is relying to show that there's an agreement between him and other members of the CRO to distribute methamphetamine. Mr. Mendoza provides a different narrative. He says in those 2013-2016 incidents, there were no materials that could be used to cut, weigh, or package or sell methamphetamine. If you're trying to redistribute this methamphetamine, you need those items, you need the scales to weigh, you need to have items to cut in order to redistribute into smaller portions the narcotics. He also says that since he moved, he's been absent from mandatory meetings that the CRO held. CRO, in fact, did not speak to him. Most of the members did not even have his phone number. And then, if you look at the overall conspiracy, he participated in only 4 out of 21,000 phone calls over 7 months. And at some point, on one of those calls, he threatens the CRO member that he would no longer purchase methamphetamine from him because the price is just too high. So when you compare these 2 narratives, they're quite different. The government is trying to prove there's a conspiracy, an agreement to distribute, and then Mr. Mendoza says that he's simply a user. He's saying that he should have received this buyer-seller instruction to the jury because all he is a buyer, and CRO members are sellers. Here's what the appellate court says. If we look at the precedent, the other cases by the Ninth Circuit, comparing those cases, here, Mr. Mendoza, there is no recorded calls or testimony that Mr. Mendoza would have further distributed these narcotics. There is no talks about that. All there is that he's buying these narcotics. And then the second biggest item that the Ninth Circuit discusses is that there's no evidence of repeat or large quantity sales. All there is are these 2 instances of 16.2 and 3.5 grams of methamphetamine. The only thing that the Ninth Circuit says that helps the government in terms of these large quantities and repeat items is that he did purchase the drugs on credit, which suggests that he would purchase again. But again, the Ninth Circuit says that's not completely the full story. The fact that there's only 4 calls out of 21,000 and the fact that there was no cutting or weighing or packaging materials shows that he's not part of this conspiracy. I hope you now understand a little bit more about the buyer-seller rule, and you can tell that building a narrative is important to prove to the jury or later to the appellate court whether you're part of the conspiracy, or in this case, the Ninth Circuit says that Mr. Mendoza was not part of any agreement. He was simply a buyer. And because there was insufficient evidence to hold him to that conspiracy, the appellate court sends the case back to the district court, saying that he should be held innocent of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute methamphetamine and should be resentenced accordingly. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so next time I post, you'll be first to know. And if you haven't yet, go back and start this series where I discuss conspiracy law. I know I only give the overview of the conspiracy in that series, but it gives you a good understanding and it makes it easier later on for you to look at these cases and understand what I'm talking about. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.